I'm sitting here right now watching something absolutely unreal unfold in real time. A woman who once said she'd literally fight anyone for Donald Trump, who fought for him 3 times, who stood beside him through 2 impeachments, through January 6th, through all of it, is now sitting on CNN looking Caitlin Collins dead in the eye and saying, "We did not vote for this. We voted for an end to foreign wars." And that's exactly what we should be seeing. That woman is Marjorie Taylor Greene. And what she is doing right now is not just political dissent. It is not just a post on X. It is not a disgruntled former ally venting steam. What she is doing is a reckoning, a full demolition of the man she helped build. And she is doing it with names, with facts, with dates, with casualties, and with a fury that I haven't seen from any Republican since before Trump took the oath of office. Stop. Think about that for a second. Marjorie Taylor Greene was not just a Trump voter. She was Trump's avatar in Congress. She was the one going to bat when almost everyone else flinched. She wore the MAGA hat harder than most. And now she is the one sitting on CNN of all places, dismantling his presidency piece by piece, war by war, promise by broken promise. That is not ordinary political life. That is a seismic event inside the American right. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly what she said, why she said it now, what it tells us about where the MAGA coalition actually stands, and what the numbers coming out of Operation Epic Fury reveal about a war that, according to Marjorie Taylor Greene, the American people never voted for. Stay with me, because this changes the picture entirely. If you're not subscribed to Daily Brief yet, hit that button right now, because this story is moving fast, and you need to be here when the next piece drops. Let's go back, not decades, not years, weeks, February 28th, 2026. That's the day everything changed. That's the day President Donald Trump authorized what the Pentagon is now calling Operation Epic Fury, a joint U.S.-Israeli military campaign targeting Iran's nuclear infrastructure, its missile systems, its navy, and its leadership. According to Britannica's updated conflict report, nearly 900 strikes were carried out in just the first 12 hours. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was killed in the opening wave of attacks. Iran did not sit still. According to the same reporting, Iran launched hundreds of ballistic missiles and thousands of drones across the Middle East, hitting U.S. bases in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Jordan, Turkey, and the UAE. The Strait of Hormuz was effectively closed. Oil tankers were hit. The Burj Al Arab in Dubai caught fire from drone debris. A French soldier was killed in northern Iraq. And as of March 13th, 2026, according to NPR's Cost and Casualties Tracker, the U.S. has spent approximately $3.7 billion in the first 100 hours alone. More than 15,000 targets have been hit. At least 13 American service members are confirmed dead. Around 200 U.S. troops have been wounded. 10 remain severely injured. Brent crude crossed $119 per barrel last week. This is the context in which Marjorie Taylor Greene picked up the phone, called CNN, and went on air, and she did not hold back. Announcement number 1. She questioned the president's mental state. This is where the interview got uncomfortable for everyone. Caitlin Collins asked Greene about something Trump said earlier that day. A Fox News host had asked the president when the war in Iran would end. Trump replied, when I feel it in my bones. Greene's response was measured, calm, and devastating. I have no idea what that means, she said on CNN. The same way I have no idea. I have no understanding of what he means when he says he doesn't think he's going to heaven. Those are statements that I find concerning. So I honestly have no idea what that means. Read that again. A former top Trump ally appearing on national television saying that the president's statements about when a war ends and about his own salvation are concerning to her. She went further on Megyn Kelly's Sirius XM show the same day saying, what is in his mind? What is his mental state if he doesn't think he's going to heaven and he is a man towards the end? He's in the fourth quarter. He's towards the end of his life. That is not political disagreement. That is a public question about whether the man with his finger on the trigger is cognitively fit to be there. Voila. Received number 1. Announcement number 2. She said the war is a betrayal, not a mistake, a betrayal. This is the one that hits hardest because it's not abstract. It's personal. Greene reminded viewers and Trump of the promises made on the campaign trail, not just by Trump himself, but by J.D. Vance, by Tulsi Gabbard, by Charlie Kirk, by the entire apparatus of the America First movement. The promise was simple: no more foreign wars, no more regime change. The era of endless Middle East entanglements was over. He told Americans for over 10 years, she said, that he thought foreign wars and regime change was a bad direction for America to go in, and we trusted and believed him. But this was an unprovoked war, and Israel pulled us into it, pulled America into it. She was unambiguous on social media, too. As reported by Newsweek, Greene wrote in a post on X, "It's always a lie, and it's always America last. But it feels like the worst betrayal this time because it comes from the very man and the admin who we all believed was different." She called the administration a bunch of sick liars in another post, according to Rolling Stone. She accused them of a complete bait and switch to please the neocons, warmongers, military-industrial complex contracts, and neocon TV personalities that MAGA hates. Wait, let that sit for a second. This is not a Democrat. This is not a CNN anchor. This is not a never-Trumper. This is a woman who voted for Donald Trump 3 times, who stormed the halls of Congress fighting for him, who lost friends over her loyalty to him. And she is now using the same language that the left used 4 years ago to describe him. Received number 2. Announcement number 3. She gave a cost-benefit breakdown that no Republican in office is willing to say out loud. This is the part the mainstream coverage buries. This is the part that matters most if you're sitting at home watching gas prices go up, watching your grocery bill go up, watching diesel costs push the price of everything higher. Greene laid it out on CNN. 13 service members dead, over 200 wounded, at least 10 severely. Over $20 billion spent. A 5,000-strong Marine Expeditionary Unit now en route to the region, which Greene noted is typically the precursor to a ground invasion, the same type of force used before boots hit the ground in Vietnam. Congress, she said, cannot even fund the Department of Homeland Security. Border Patrol agents, ICE, TSA officers are not getting paid. But there is about to be a vote on another war supplemental, possibly $50 billion or more. And as she pointed out on CNN, here's Americans at home right now. We've got families getting ready to go on spring break and gas prices are skyrocketing. Inflation has barely stabilized, and people voted for lower grocery costs. Well, we're going to see costs at the grocery stores going up because diesel is going up and oil is going up because of this war. We've got 30% of the world's fertilizer going through the strait. That affects our farmers who are struggling already. According to NPR's cost tracker, the highest price of Brent crude over the past week reached $119.50 per barrel. The International Energy Agency has already released 400 million barrels of strategic reserves to try to cushion the blow. The U.S. alone released 172 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. This is not theoretical economic pain. This is happening now, at the pump, at the supermarket, on your next utility bill. Received number 3. Now let's talk about what's actually happening inside the fracture, because this isn't just about Marjorie Taylor Greene. She said it herself when she got off CNN. She went straight to social media and posted that she had been on the phone with some of the top America First conservative leaders, and they are, in her words, all in agreement. This administration and the Republican Party are going in the wrong direction on the war, on Epstein, on domestic issues. And the villains in her telling are Lindsey Graham, Mark Levin, and the neocon establishment Republicans that the MAGA movement was supposedly built to defeat. She also went somewhere else, somewhere that deserves its own section, because it is not just a political critique, it is a generational indictment. On CNN, Greene went after baby boomers, directly, without apology. She said, "I think there's a big divide between the baby boomer generation and Gen X, my generation, and the millennials. Our generations have been the ones that have been sent to fight these wars in the Middle East, and our generations have paid a huge cost, and we want to see it over with. But yet it's the baby boomers that are in power that are just clinging to power, living out the end of their days." She didn't stop there. She pointed to Social Security. She said that in just 7 years, Social Security will be bankrupt, that the younger generations are being handed tens of trillions of dollars in national debt, that their Social Security payments are basically a tax at this point, and they may never see a check. Whether you agree with that framing or not, it is striking, because she is not just attacking Trump, she is attacking the entire gerontocracy that she says is running this country into the ground on behalf of its own nostalgia, its own television habits, and its own sense of historical destiny. That is a message with enormous resonance, and not just among conservatives. She then addressed directly the rest of the world. On camera, on CNN, she said, "The younger generations of Americans, we don't want war with the world. We want peace. We desperately want peace between all of our nations. We want good trade. We want to have good business deals, and we want to be able to visit your countries, and you come visit ours. This is not what we want. This is not what we voted for." That is a presidential level message delivered by a former congresswoman on a cable news show in the middle of an active war. Personne n'en parle comme ça. Nobody is connecting those dots. Tucker Carlson, according to the New York Times, met with Trump multiple times in recent weeks to try to talk him out of authorizing the operation. Former Fox News host Megyn Kelly said on air that she doesn't think the 4 service members who died for the United States. She said, "I think they died for Iran or for Israel." And Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky posted on X, "I am opposed to this war. This is not America first. When Congress reconvenes, I will work with Representative Ro Khanna to force a congressional vote on war with Iran." Let me be very precise about where the numbers stand on public opinion, because this matters enormously for what comes next. According to a Reuters Ipsos poll, 43% of Americans disapprove of the U.S. military action in Iran. Only 27% support it. That is a massive gap. But here's where it gets complicated. A CNN SSRS poll shows 77% of Republicans approve of the strikes. So within the party itself, Greene and the anti-war flank are currently a minority. But here's the counterpoint. In a Texas primary last week, according to reporting from Time magazine, more Democrats showed up to vote than Republicans. Greene went public on this, writing, "More Democrats showed up to vote than Republicans in yesterday's Texas primary. If that happens in November's general election, Texas will be flipping its Senate seat blue." She added, "Whatever Trump's new twisted perversion of MAGA is going to lose in the midterms." That is an extraordinary statement, and it raises a very serious question about the political arithmetic of this war. Appuyez sur like if this is making sense so far, and subscribe to Daily Brief if you want to stay ahead of this story. We'll be covering every development as it happens. Let's talk about what this means for you, specifically. If you're a family planning a road trip for spring break, you're already feeling the $119 a barrel crude in your wallet. Gas prices are rising across the country, directly tied to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the disruption of global oil supply. The IEA has released 400 million barrels of emergency reserves. That's how serious the supply shock is. If you're a farmer, the disruption of fertilizer supply through the Strait of Hormuz is a direct threat to your input costs this planting season. Greene named it. The analysts are confirming it. If you have a family member in the military, or if you're watching news of a potential draft with dread, Greene spoke directly to that fear on CNN. She mentioned that parents are scared of a draft. She asked openly, how many more American troops will be killed? How long will this last? What is the exit strategy? As of today, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has confirmed more casualties are expected, describing the operation as major combat operations and saying the campaign is only ramping up. If you work in defense contracting, oil, or logistics, the dynamics are shifting fast. The Strait of Hormuz remains partially closed. Iranian drones and missiles have targeted 16 oil tankers. The French Charles de Gaulle carrier strike group has entered the eastern Mediterranean, heading toward the region. The war is expanding, not contracting. And if you simply care about whether the United States Congress is functional, Greene pointed out that Republicans cannot even pass funding for the Department of Homeland Security. Border Patrol agents are not being paid. TSA workers are not being paid, and yet they are being asked to vote yes on another $50 billion war supplemental. She also reminded viewers that House Speaker Mike Johnson has still not delivered the health care plan he promised Americans. None of this is abstract. All of it is real. All of it is already in motion. Let me put Greene's criticism in its historical frame for one moment, because she made a specific comparison that deserves unpacking. Trump himself, in 2016, called the Iraq War a big, fat mistake. It was one of the signature moments of his original campaign. He used it to separate himself from every establishment Republican on the stage. He built part of his coalition on the promise that he saw through the lie, that the WMD story was fabricated, that the neocons had manipulated America into a catastrophic war, and he said never again. As Fortune reported last summer in June 2025, Trump said airstrikes had obliterated Iran's nuclear program. He chastised any media outlet that said otherwise. He told the American people the threat was gone. Less than a year later, he launched Operation Epic Fury, claiming Iran was weeks away from having nuclear weapons capable of reaching the United States. Greene named the contradiction directly. He told us back in the summer that he had completely obliterated all of their nuclear capabilities, and now he's saying they're a week away from striking us with nuclear bombs. Voila. That's not nuance. That's not complexity. That is a documented reversal. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of his most loyal soldiers, is standing on CNN calling it exactly what she believes it is. She also brought up the girls' school. This is important. According to Britannica's conflict entry, U.S. forces are believed to have struck a girls' school in a town east of Bandar Abbas. A preliminary U.S. investigation has been launched. Greene mentioned this explicitly. 40 innocent schoolgirls killed. She said it was such an outrage and that it is absolutely something that Americans should not tolerate and that we are owed answers. She said she drove past an elementary school and saw children on the playground and could not stop thinking about what it means that other children don't have that. And then, before we get to the two paths, there is one more element of Greene's CNN appearance that needs to be named directly. She called out J.D. Vance, she called out Tulsi Gabbard, and she did it with a kind of pleading intensity that was unlike anything else in the interview. She said, "I very much like J.D. Vance. I very much like Tulsi Gabbard and share many of the political views that they have. I want them to speak out. We need them to speak out. We need people in the administration that we know disagree with it because of their voices and the words they spoke previously, to hear from them." She acknowledged the difficulty of their position. They serve at the pleasure of the president. But she made clear that in her view, their silence is not neutral. It is a choice. And the American people deserve to know where they stand. This matters because Vance built his political identity on anti-interventionism. As recently as the 22-24 campaign, Vance was telling audiences that going to war with Iran would be a terrible idea. Charlie Kirk said the same thing repeatedly. Tulsi Gabbard built her entire early political brand on opposition to regime change wars in the Middle East. And now all of them are inside the tent, and none of them are speaking. Greene is essentially asking, did they mean what they said, or was it all positioning? That question does not have a comfortable answer. Finally, and this is the part that reveals just how dysfunctional the situation in Washington has become, Greene pointed out that Congress right now cannot even fund the Department of Homeland Security. Border Patrol, ICE, TSA, those agents are not getting paid. The government cannot manage that basic task. And yet, Congress is about to be asked to vote yes on a war supplemental that could be $50 billion or more to fund a war that, by Greene's accounting, is costing approximately $1 to $2 billion per day. She also took a direct shot at House Speaker Mike Johnson, reminding viewers that he promised Americans a health care plan, a plan that has still not materialized. While American families cannot afford health insurance and the administration is dropping billions of dollars over the skies of Tehran, that is the legislative picture. It is not a pretty one. Now I want to be direct with you. This is where the coverage gets complicated because you have two legitimate realities running side by side. On one hand, the Trump administration argues that Iran's nuclear capability posed an existential threat to Israel, to U.S. allies, and potentially to the American homeland. Hegseth has stated the goals clearly: destroy Iran's missiles, destroy its navy, permanently deny it nuclear weapons, and weaken its terrorist proxies. By their metrics, according to Defense Scoop, Iranian drone attacks are down 95%. Their navy has lost over 51 ships. Their air force no longer exists in any meaningful operational sense. On the other hand, Marjorie Taylor Greene is standing in front of a national audience, along with Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Thomas Massie, Rand Paul, and saying the case was never made. The American people did not vote for this. The promise was broken. The cost in blood and treasure is real, and the political consequences for the Republican Party could be severe. Both of these things can be simultaneously true, and that's exactly what makes this moment so volatile. I see two paths forward from here. There is no middle. Path 1. The operation achieves its stated objectives within the 4 to 6 week window Hegseth described. Iranian missile and drone capabilities are substantially degraded. A new Iranian leadership, lacking Khamenei's authority and legitimacy, enters into some form of negotiated framework. Oil flows resume through the Strait of Hormuz. Crude prices begin to fall, and Trump, with the full weight of a finished military campaign behind him, claims victory. The dissenters are marginalized. The midterm damage is contained. That path exists. It's not fantasy, but it requires the war to end cleanly, quickly, and visibly. Path 2. The Marine Expeditionary Unit arrives in the region. The air campaign fails to break Iranian will or force a leadership transition. Boots go on the ground. Casualties climb past the numbers that American voters can tolerate. The Strait of Hormuz stays closed through the summer. Gas hits $5, $6, $7 per gallon. Grocery prices spike, and the Texas primary becomes a preview of a November catastrophe in the midterms. At that point, the question of whether the Republican majority in the House and Senate survives becomes very real. And Marjorie Taylor Greene becomes not a disgruntled outlier, but a prophet. I think we're closer to path 2 than path 1 right now, but I thought path 1 was possible 3 weeks ago, and then Operation Epic Fury began. Leave me a comment below. Tell me which path you think we're on. I read every single one. Here's the final thing I want you to hold. There is something almost Shakespearean about what's happening here. A man builds a movement on the promise of ending wars. He gets elected partly on that promise, and then, inside a year, he launches the largest U.S. military operation in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. And the woman who was one of his loudest, most relentless advocates, who stood by him through things that ended other political careers, is now on CNN asking whether he's mentally fit to lead. Whether you agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene or not, whether you support Operation Epic Fury or you oppose it, whether you think Iran posed a genuine nuclear threat or whether you think this was manufactured, none of that changes what this moment represents. The coalition that was supposed to be unbreakable is fracturing in public, in real time. And the cost, in dollars, in lives, in political capital, is only beginning to be calculated. So I'll leave you with this. Was the war in Iran a necessary act of national defense or the ultimate betrayal of the America First promise? Did the people closest to this movement see the real Donald Trump before the rest of us did? Or are they just positioning themselves for what comes next? And the hardest question of all, when the history of these weeks is written, which side of this argument will have been right? Respond in the comments. Hit subscribe to Daily Brief if you want to follow this story as it develops. And share this video with someone who needs to hear this, because the mainstream coverage is not connecting these dots the way they need to be connected. This is Daily Brief. Stay sharp.